Good morning, dear students. I would like to welcome you all for the Bridge course. Okay. Now, in this session, we will be discussing about some of the basic topics what you have studied in your previous classes. Okay. Now, let us start. First, we'll start with the lesson crop production and management. Under this lesson, we will be covering some of the basic points. Okay. First of all, tell me whether all living organisms require food or not. Correct? All the living organisms require food. But where do these organisms get food from? These organisms get food from the plants or from the animals. We all feed on plants or animals, that is herbivorous or carnivorous. Correct? Herbivorous are those animals animals or human beings which feed on plants for their food, whereas carnivores are those which feed on the flesh of other animals. Those are called as carnivores. Okay. Now tell me how these green plants prepare their food. We said that green plants prepare their food, they synthesize their food. How do they synthesize their food? How do they prepare their food? They prepare their food through a process called photosynthesis. What is photosynthesis? Photo means light, whereas synthesis is nothing but preparation or the process. Preparation you can call it as, or you can call it as a process. So photosynthesis is preparation of the food by the green plants using sunlight, okay, and air, which is CO2, carbon dioxide, and water, which the roots absorb from the soil. So this is the photosynthesis process by which green plants prepare their food using sunlight, air, and water. Now we know that plants prepare food and we use that food to eat, correct? But how can we fulfill the need of all the world, or you can say the country? How can you fulfill the requirement of food throughout your country at least? Correct? For that we need to study crop production and management. How to produce these crops and how to manage this crop production. Okay, first of all let us understand what is a crop. What do we mean by a crop? Crop is nothing but these are small plants which are grown over a large scale of area. Crops are what? Small plants which are grown over a large scale of area. So such type of plants which are grown over a large scale of area are called as crops. For example, you can take an example of wheat. Correct? Wheat is an example of crop. Correct? Paddy is also another example. Maize. These all are crops. Now let us understand what are the crop patterns. When which crop is grown, in which season which crop you are going to grow. Okay, so the crop patterns are the first one is the kharif crop. Kharif crop. Kharif crops are those crops which are grown in rainy season. In India, when do you witness the rainy season? It is from June to September. Correct? June to September you witness the rainy season. That time the kharif crops are grown. For example, kharif crops are paddy and maize. Okay. The second type of pattern is rabi crop. Rabi crops are grown during winter season. When is the winter season in India? The winter season is from October to March, correct? In this season you are going to grow the rabi crops. Understood? What are the two patterns? That is the kharif crop and the rabi crops. Next, now we know what is a crop and what are these patterns of the crop. Next, let us see how these crops are grown, how these crops are cultivated. There might be some of the steps to cultivate these crops, correct? So one by one. Let us discuss. We call those steps or practices as agricultural practices. Under these agricultural practices, there are 7 steps. The first one is preparation of the soil. How will you prepare the soil? Preparation means to make the soil ready to grow the seeds or to sow the seeds. To get the soil ready. How will you prepare the soil? Preparing the soil requires some of the implements. Implements means instruments. Agricultural instruments. You can take the example of plow. What you use in your fields to plow the field. Why we need to plow the field? Plowing is nothing but digging or loosening the soil. We call this digging and loosening of the soil even as tilling the soil. Why do we call it as tilling the soil? Because we loosen the soil, correct? Why do we loosen? There are reasons why we loosen the soil. It is because the earthworms and microbes are present inside the soil, correct? So that they can breathe properly. And the second reason is that the nutrients which are present in the lower layer of the soil. When you dig it, the lower layer of the soil comes upward. So the nutrient quality also increases in the upper layer of the soil, correct? And the third reason is that there are plants in your topsoil surface. Then the roots of the plants can penetrate deep into the soil if digging process takes place properly, correct? Or loosening of the soil takes place properly. So we require first process, that is preparation of the soil by this method. The second is sowing. What do you mean by sowing now? Sowing is nothing but putting the seeds into the mud or the soil. How will you sow the seeds? We sow the seeds using 2 methods. Before they used to use a traditional method. In the traditional method, they used a funnel shaped equipment, or you can say instrument, to pierce the seeds in the soil. Here the seeds were put and the seeds were pierced down one by one inside the soil at a particular distance. Here the seeds were sown in the soil. But a disadvantage of this is that many seeds can fall at a time. There is no regular regular falling of the seeds inside the soil. Okay, so this method is a traditional method. The modern method, what we use it as, is a seed drill method. Using a tractor, they use huge seed drills to sow the seeds at a particular pattern, or you can say at a regular interval, at regular distance. Okay, there the seed drill process is used. The third is adding manure and fertilizers. Adding manures and fertilizers. What do you mean by manure? Manure is nothing but the residue of the plants and animals. Residue or the waste of plants and animals is termed as manure. Whereas what is fertilizer? Fertilizers are chemical substances. This is the organic substance. This is inorganic. Okay. So manures and fertilizers are added to the soil to increase its nutrient quality. Manures and fertilizers are added to the soil in the form of nutrients so that the growth of the plant is good or the healthy growth of the plant is promoted. Correct? Now the fourth one is irrigation. What is irrigation? Irrigation is nothing but it is watering the plants at regular intervals. Regular intervals means at time to time. There shouldn't be gap between. One day you are watering the plant and the second day you are not watering the plant. It shouldn't be like that. Irrigation is watering the plants at regular intervals. Okay. There are 2 methods by which irrigation process takes place. The first is traditional method. Traditional method. In traditional method, modern method involves sprinkler system and drip irrigation system. Sprinkler system you can see in the gardens where the sprinkle of the nozzle of the sprinkler turns and the water is spread evenly throughout. Correct? So the sprinkler system is used in modern method, and the drip irrigation system also. The pipes are attached like this in lines. Okay, the pipes are attached like this, and here small holes have been done, and here the water falls drop by drop at the roots of the plant. The water falls drop by drop at the roots of the plant. So the modern method is a bit advantageous for us because it avoids wastage of water. Correct? Next we'll see the fifth method or the fifth step, that is removal of weeds. How do we remove these weeds? First of all, let us see what is a weed. Weed is nothing but it is an undesirable or unwanted plant which grows in between your main crop. The main crops are growing like this. In between some of the weeds, that is the unwanted or undesirable plants are growing. Such plants we call them as weeds. Now how will you remove these weeds? We remove these weeds using weedicides. Weedicides are the chemical sprays, or you can use these weedicides or sometimes a manual method, that is using a sickle, what we call it as kurpi. Correct? Using a sickle you can remove the weeds. So this is about removal of weeds. Next process we have it as harvesting. What is harvesting? Harvesting is cutting or removing the crops after it has been matured. After the crop is fully grown, you are going to cut the crops, correct? You are going to obtain the crops from the fields. That is nothing but harvesting. For harvesting process, before they used to use the process of winnowing. What is winnowing? They used to sieve like this, right? And the lighter particles would fall at a certain distance and the heavier grains would fall directly down to the floor. But in today's scenario, they are using threshers to separate the chaff from the main grains. Okay, so this is about harvesting. The next is last step, that is storage. What do you mean by storage? Now we have stored the seeds, removed the weeds, added irrigation, fertilizers, manures. Now the last step, what we have to do after the crop is ready? You are going to store it. Where you are going to store it? You are going to store it in the gunny bags, and those gunny bags are further stored in large storage homes, or you can say granaries. These gunny bags are stored which are filled with the grains. Correct? This is the storage process. Okay. These are the 7 steps which we undergo to grow the crops, and those are called as agricultural practices. The last one in this lesson you will be studying about animal husbandry. What is animal husbandry? Animal husbandry is rearing of these animals for their products. For example, dairy. Why do we rear the cow? It is because of its milk, correct? Similarly, another example, poultry farms. Why do we have chickens or hens in the poultry farms? Because of their flesh or the meat what they provide us, and the eggs, correct? So animals are reared, and that